In the depths of a conflict-ridden African region, two soldiers hunkered behind boulders, rifles in hand, eyes scanning the horizon. "Ever wonder where these anti-government guys get their weapons?" one murmured to the other, wiping sweat off his brow. The scene shifted abruptly. Another soldier lay gasping for breath, wounded, his comrade beside him pressing a cloth against his injury. "Should we pull back?" the injured soldier wheezed. Before they could decide, footsteps approached from behind. A strong, decisive voice pierced the tension. "I'll lead the attack." It was Azuma Ruji, captain of the 5th Squad, an imposing figure who moved swiftly to hide behind a stone. From there, he observed the enemy, calculating silently. With speed and precision, Azuma Ruji advanced. He pounced from his hiding spot, landing a solid punch on the first enemy soldier. With his seasoned martial arts skills, he quickly knocked out the second and third foes. He aimed his gun at the fourth and pulled the trigger, hitting him right in the head. "Mission accomplished," he declared, tying the incapacitated soldiers to a tree. Interrogating one of the captives, Azuma learned that the enemy had disposed of their dead. He nodded in grim approval. When told that their base was across the forest, Azuma gave a resolute assurance, "We'll complete our reconnaissance before sundown." As they ventured deeper into the forest, the soldiers couldn't help but admire Azuma's leadership. One even praised his linguistic skills, dubbing him the modern era's strongest. Azuma accepted the compliment but turned the spotlight onto his team. "It's because of your courage and strength that we succeed." In the midst of this, another soldier commented, somewhat awkwardly, "You know, we didn't expect a Japanese guy to be this strong." Another corrected him, pointing to Azuma's reputation as proof of his remarkable strength and intelligence. Azuma, overhearing this, clarified, "I fear death, just like anyone else. I make judgments based on the situation." As they neared their target, Azuma suddenly stopped, puzzled. Fog enveloped them. "What's going on here?" he murmured, looking around. "Where am I?" He found himself alone at the mouth of a mysterious cave. A cave? Was there always a cave nearby? I should check the map. Before he could, a celestial voice echoed around him, "Welcome, hero from another world." Azuma reached for his gun, but it was gone. All he had was his knife. "Don't worry," said the voice. "I'm your heavenly guide." A hologram appeared before him, displaying Azuma's personal data, his name, race, job level, and even his HP. Azuma stood there, stunned, his mind racing. "My body's data," he exclaimed in disbelief, realizing he was caught in something far more extraordinary than he had ever imagined. In a realm completely alien to him, Azuma Ruji stood flabbergasted as he watched his own stats floating on a holographic screen. "How is this possible?" he mumbled, thinking he was losing his grip on reality. The celestial voice chimed in, "It's a common thing in this world, much like in the video games from your planet." "Games? I don't know. Never had the luxury to play them," Azuma replied, bewildered. "Then you're unfamiliar with being summoned to another world?" the heavenly voice inquired. "Never heard of it," Azuma shot back. Just then, another sound caught his ears. "Shush," he whispered to the heavenly voice. Down a steep cliff, he saw figures engaged in a surreal battle against a dragon. Hologram screens, much like his own, floated beside them, showing their stats. They were hurling magic spells at the dragon, but their strategies seemed ineffective. Azuma couldn't help but intervene, "Target its abdomen." "It's too dangerous," came the wary reply. Ignoring the warning, Azuma jumped into the fray. He was only at level 2, but his quick reflexes let him dodge the dragon's lunging attack. He tried a stealthy maneuver to strike from behind, avoiding the dragon's poisonous fangs. But the dragon was smarter than he thought. It whipped around, blocking his attack with its tail. Azuma narrowly dodged a counterattack, saying, "As long as I don't get hit, it's fine." But just then, the dragon's head collided with him, sending him flying. "He's done for," one of the magical figures mumbled. But another retorted, "Wait, just watch." To everyone's astonishment, Azuma landed safely. "Unbelievable," he whispered, realizing the dragon had been rampaging to shake him off. Seizing the opportunity, Azuma unsheathed his knife and plunged it into the dragon's vulnerable abdomen. Blood spurted, and when the dust settled, the dragon lay defeated. He did it with just a knife, someone shouted in disbelief. Azuma simply said, "I'm just a soldier." Suddenly, a golden coin materialized before him. Picking it up, a voice announced that his maximum HP and MP had increased. His hologram updated instantly. The magical fighters thanked him but seemed puzzled about his identity. "I conduct rescue operations," Azuma clarified. Impressed by his prowess, they invited him to join their ranks. Some remained skeptical, but Azuma soon silenced them by skillfully fighting off a wave of monsters that ambushed the group. "You're a lifesaver," one praised him, explaining the dungeon's D rank and that such dungeons ranged from E to S, with legendary and mythic ranks above that. Azuma nodded, grasping the concept. Adventurers collected items dropped by defeated monsters, like the golden coin in his hand. That's when someone noticed the weapon summoning item Azuma held. "You can summon weapons you've used in the past with this. It's extremely useful," the first magical fighter explained, praising Azuma for his earlier defeat of a lizard monster. However, another adventurer scoffed, "No self-respecting adventurer would thank you for such a trivial item." Unfazed, Azuma studied the weapon summoning item. It might seem insignificant to them, but for a man displaced from his world, adapting to strange lands and combating dragons, it was another tool for survival. And in a world where he was leveling up by the minute and his entire life could be quantified on a holographic screen, Azuma knew he needed all the help he could get. Ignoring the naysayer among the group, Azuma pondered about the weapon summoning item in his hand. While the others relied mainly on magic, this object could serve as his secret ace. His thoughts were interrupted when a snake-like monster slithered into view. Azuma and the group of magical fighters quickly took it down, and Azuma could feel his power grow. His stats, MP and HP, rose once again. The heavenly voice returned, but Azuma chose to ignore it. They had reached an expansive clearing under the night sky. One member speculated they were near the exit, but Azuma sensed danger. "Run! And keep your eyes on the sky," he shouted. Confusion swept the group. But before anyone could question him further, a dragon plummeted from the heavens, landing with an earth-shaking thud. Panic erupted. This was a D-rank dungeon. Why was there a dragon? One terrified member attempted to flee, but the dragon's movement shook the cliffs, causing rocks to tumble down, blocking their only exit. All eyes turned to a small, barely visible hole at the top of a cliff as their potential escape route. "We need to make that dragon move." "Let's use magic," the first magical person suggested. United, they launched their most potent spells, but the dragon remained unfazed. Azuma learned from one of the magical fighters that the dragon was gearing up for a magic-infused roar. Suddenly, a colossal beam of fire burst from the dragon's mouth. "We're done for," they thought. But Azuma, instead of panicking, was analyzing the dragon, which had skin as sturdy as a tank. He noticed a tiny scratch on the dragon's abdomen and wondered, could he use that to their advantage? "I want to try something," Azuma announced, taking cover behind a boulder. Without warning, he hurled his knife at the scratch. It widened. A knife against a dragon? "Really?" someone in the group questioned skeptically. Azuma responded, "Listen up. Magic isn't working. We need to hit it physically. I need your cooperation." At first, they thought it was a long shot, but a growing sense of desperation urged them to listen. "Don't worry," Azuma assured them. "The gamble's odds aren't terrible." Azuma orchestrated the strategy. Distract the dragon, make it look your way. As they executed his plan, some wondered if Azuma had abandoned them. But the soldier had another trick up his sleeve. He focused on a coin in his hand, which transformed into an anti-material rifle. With precision, he aimed at the dragon's weak point and pulled the trigger. A deafening blast echoed through the clearing. The dragon roared one last time before collapsing. The group stood there, jaws dropped. The first magical person finally broke the silence. He did it. He actually defeated the dragon. With this feat, Azuma cemented his standing not just as a soldier from another world, but as a leader even in this magical, fantastical realm. It didn't matter if he was a misfit, Azuma had found his place, leading and fighting alongside a team in this bizarre new world. After defeating the dragon, a shower of coins and treasures hit the ground, sparkling in the dim light. The group couldn't help but cheer. Their levels had even increased. They started climbing through the tiny hole at the top of the cliff to exit, but Hazuma stopped dead in his tracks. Among the debris, he spotted a child's shoe. "Great job on the dragon, Hazuma. You should join us permanently," one member praised, but Hazuma was more concerned about the shoe. "Whose shoe is this?" The atmosphere changed. "It probably belongs to one of the missing children we were looking for initially," someone admitted. The group had been on a quest to find missing kids, but had abandoned it due to a member being abducted. They suspected that goblins were responsible. Hazuma frowned. "You left someone behind? The dungeon's too dangerous." "We were probably misled by the Adventurers Guild on its ranking," one member tried to justify. "Individually, goblins are weak, but they use numbers and even hostages to their advantage. We were out of our league." Hazuma listened, but shook his head. "Cautiousness is good, but that's not a reason to abandon people. Do we have a weapon summon among these coins?" "No, just precious stones and such." Visibly disappointed but resolute, Hazuma moved forward. The others looked at each other, their faces flushed with shame, but they followed him anyway. The scene shifted to a dark, damp place where terrified children were tied to wooden posts. A woman was there too, her eyes meeting those of the frightened kids. "Don't lose hope," she whispered to them. Suddenly, a goblin screamed and fell dead, a knife lodged in its back. Hazuma stood there, his eyes cold, knife dripping with goblin blood. The rest of the goblins growled and turned toward him. "Want to fight?" "Come on," Hazuma challenged, knife at the ready. Without a second's delay, he lunged at the goblins. His knife moved like a flash of lightning, each strike more accurate than the last. He moved from one goblin to another, taking them down with ease and precision. Within moments, he had cleared a path through the goblin crowd and reached the children and the woman. With quick slices of his knife, their bonds were cut. The woman looked at Hazuma, a mix of awe and gratitude in her eyes. "Who are you?" Hazuma wiped the blood off his knife and sheathed it. "I'm the guy who believes no quest, no life, should be abandoned. Now let's get you all home." The group back at the cliff could hardly believe their eyes when Hazuma returned, leading the children and the woman to safety. Their earlier shame was now replaced by newfound respect for Hazuma. It wasn't just about Dungeons and Dragons, it was about doing what was right, even when it was the hardest thing to do. And Hazuma had just given them a masterclass in that very lesson. "Are they all okay?" the girl asked Hazuma as they navigated through the goblin-infested dungeon. "Let's focus on getting out of here first," Hazuma replied, gripping his knife tightly. "There's so many of them." "It's really bothersome," said one of the kids. The girl sighed. "I wish I had my sword. I could help." "We use what we have," Hazuma said. He lunged back into the sea of goblins, knife in hand. But despite his ferocity, the goblins kept coming. "There's no end to them," he shouted. His knife had also lost its edge, stained with layers of goblin blood. Just then, a goblin lunged at the children. Hazuma was quicker, blocking the attack and booting the goblin in the face. "Are you okay?" the girl asked. "My dominant arm's fine." "I can still fight," Hazuma responded. "Get the kids out of here. I'll hold them off. But, go!" He faced the goblin horde again, feeling his energy wane. "It's a battle of stamina now," he thought. "Will they tire out before I do?" That's when he heard it, voices behind him. The magic users from his earlier group were back. "Cover your body in magic power," one shouted. "What are you doing here?" Hazuma yelled back. "We couldn't just leave you," they answered. The girl added, "The goblins are using magic to bolster their physical abilities. So, that's why they move like greased lightning," Hazuma mused. Before he could say more, a voice in his head spoke. "Check your stats. You have something called MP, magic points." Hazuma's eyes widened. "Got it." Red flames erupted around him. With a sudden burst of magical speed, he decapitated 2 goblins in a split second. "Wow," the girl said, amazed. "You caught on to using magic instantly." Hazuma stood there, his body enveloped in red flames, knife ready. But then the crowd of goblins parted, making way for their king, a monstrous goblin with a gigantic body. "Run! We're no match for this," one of the magic users screamed. Hazuma cut him off, his voice steady. "No, it's not a problem," the Goblin King roared, clearly infuriated. Hazuma's flames seemed to glow brighter, pulsating in tune with his newfound resolve. "I'm not leaving without finishing this quest. And that means taking you down," he said, staring directly into the Goblin King's eyes. The others watched, their hearts pounding but their faith in Azuma unshaken. Here was a man who didn't back down, who stood his ground when it mattered the most. As the Goblin King charged, a fire not just of magic but of unyielding will blazed in Azuma's eyes. It wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a clash of wills, a testament to what it meant to never abandon a quest, a mission, a life. And in that moment, everyone knew that Hazuma would not back down, no matter what horrors the Goblin King might unleash. So, as the monstrous creature lunged, Hazuma met it head-on, flames and all. It was time to end this. And he had just the right amount of magic and resolve to do it. The entire room fell silent as Hazuma dodged the Goblin King's furious swipe, his reflexes lightning fast. With an outburst of unparalleled strength and speed, he drove his fist into the monster's gut. In a heartbeat, the Goblin King collapsed, defeated. Jaws dropped, including those of the girl, the kids, and even the remaining goblins. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Hazuma had felled the Goblin King with his bare hands. Tension lifted, Hazuma retrieved the girl's sword from the fallen king and handed it back to her. "Thank you," she whispered, still in disbelief. The kids scampered over. "Big brother, you're amazing." Hazuma ruffled their hair, smiling. "We held on because Big Sister here told us help would come." And it did. Still in shock, the girl couldn't help but think, who is this guy, defeating the Goblin King unarmed? This is unbelievable. Following their king's defeat, the remaining goblins seemed to lose their life force. Their bodies crumbled to dust, leaving behind their souls to float away and some loot that the magic users eagerly collected. "Let's head back to the village," one of the magic users said, while another healed Hazuma's hand. Arriving at the village, the children were enveloped in hugs and tears from their parents. While the villagers were quick to thank the magic users, they pointed to Hazuma, saying he was the true hero. Upon dividing the loot, one of the magic users felt Hazuma's share was too small. "You should take more, you saved us all." "It's enough," Hazuma replied, but after some insistence, he accepted a larger share. Then, bidding farewell to the magic users, he turned to the girl. "Is there a place I can exchange these items for money?" "The Adventurers Guild," she said. "The closest one is in Redam, across those mountains." "Got it, thanks," Hazuma responded. "Are you planning to walk?" "That's reckless. I don't have money for a ride," he confessed. "Consider it my thanks for saving me," she offered. "We can take a carriage." That night, they arrived at a hotel. When the hotel clerk curiously asked if they were a married couple, both awkwardly looked away. No, the girl stammered. "2 rooms, please." Retreating to his room, Hazuma heard the girl say, "We should reach Redam tomorrow." "Good night." Hazuma lay in bed that night. A conversation unfolded in his mind with the so-called heavenly voice that had guided him before. "Can I go back to my original world?" he asked. The voice told him that it was possible, but not without conquering a mythic C-rank dungeon first. "Got it," Hazuma muttered, eager to get some sleep. The next morning, Hazuma and Faria set out for the bustling city of Redam. As they entered the crowded streets, Hazuma marveled at the diversity of the population, including different races and species. Faria, a bit irritated, reminded him to call her by her first name, triggering Hazuma to wonder why she was so guarded about her family name. Odd, he thought, but he brushed it aside. As they walked towards the Adventurers Guild, Faria outlined what the guild was about. They helped adventurers get quests, certified ranks, and lent out weapons. The guild was a powerhouse, she said, one that crossed borders and influenced nations. "You'll have to register as an adventurer if you want to sell your items," Faria told him. That settled it. Hazuma needed to explore dungeons to go back to his world, so registering as an adventurer was inevitable. They reached the front gate of the Adventurers Guild. The atmosphere was abuzz with chatter, laughter, and the clinking of armor and weapons. Faria led the way to the registration desk. The clerk looked up and asked, "Can you write?" "I can't," Hazuma admitted. Faria jumped in to vouch for Hazuma's prowess, even though he couldn't use magic. This triggered an eruption of laughter and mockery from the other adventurers around. They snickered, calling him a young rich master and a swindler. A fire ignited in Faria's eyes as she defended Hazuma. Just then, one of the jeering men reached out and grabbed her arm. "Let her go," Hazuma warned, his voice icy. "So, you want to fight?" the man sneered. Just as tensions threatened to spiral into a brawl, the desk clerk raised her voice, calling for calm. But before anyone could react, a deep voice reverberated from the stairs leading to the guild's upper levels. A tall, imposing man descended the staircase, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "What's going on in my guild?" he bellowed. The room fell silent. Clearly, this man commanded respect. As his eyes locked onto Hazuma's, he asked, "Who are you? I haven't seen your face around here before." Hazuma looked at Faria, puzzled. "He's probably the guild master," she whispered. The guild master turned to the man who had started the altercation. "Well? What happened?" The man shrugged it off. "We were just messing around, that's all." "It didn't seem that way," the guild master said, punctuating his words with a swift kick to the man's leg. "This is my guild. Trouble's not welcome here." Addressing Hazuma, he said, "You came to register as an adventurer?" Hazuma sighed, "Yes, but I've changed my mind after this display." The guild master raised an eyebrow. "Hold on. Let's test your skills. Come with me." The crowd parted, and the guild master led Hazuma to a training ground at the back of the guild building. Faria and the earlier troublemaker took seats, watching intently. "Whenever you're ready," the guild master called out. Hazuma weighed his options. "Hand-to-hand combat is my forte, but this guy's got magic. Maybe I should see what he can do first." As if reading his thoughts, the guild master sent a fireball zooming towards him, which transformed into a wave of sand midway. Hazuma dodged, barely missing the sand's touch. "Not bad," the guild master grumbled. Faria was puzzled. She had known the guild master was strong, but a double-element user? That was rare. Adventurers possess innate magic, Faria thought, which manifests as elements when activated. Most people can only harness one element. This guy's an exception. Meanwhile, Hazuma was thinking. His attacks are flashy but monotonous. If I speed up using my magic, I can get him. Cloaking himself in a shroud of red magic, Hazuma dashed towards the guild master. It'll be easy to dodge his attacks at this speed, Hazuma thought. In a split second, he was behind the guild master, who was forced to step outside the ring. As Hazuma's fist approached the guild master's face, he stopped it just an inch away. "I guess this means I pass?" The crowd was stunned. The guild master stood there, contemplating the events that had just unfolded. The guild master's eyes flared with irritation. "If you can't use magic, you're not registering as an adventurer in my guild." A murmur of disapproval rippled through the crowd outside the ring. "Come on, guild master, stop messing around," someone finally blurted out. The guild master's voice took on a steely edge. "In this guild, I am the law. Oppose me, and I'll revoke your qualifications." Just then, a desk girl burst into the room, her face flushed and panicked. "Something serious has occurred," she announced. The guild master snapped his attention to her. "What is it?" "A troll has escaped from the dungeon and is rampaging through the city," she reported. The guild master paled. "A level 37 troll in the city? Are you kidding me?" Meanwhile, the troll had begun its path of destruction, leveling houses and terrifying citizens. Several magic users rushed to confront it. Spells flew through the air, dust and smoke filled the atmosphere. For a moment, they thought they'd defeated the beast. But then, a hand burst out from the smoke, grabbing one of the magic users. "This is an impossible endeavor," she cried. "If we don't stop it, the city will be destroyed," another added. Back in the training area, the guild master was a bundle of confusion and rage. "I've never heard of this happening. Why here? Why now? Do we form a subjugation party or evaluate?" As he ranted, Hazuma started walking out of the room. Faria hurried to catch up. Ryaji-sama, where are you going? To the troll, obviously, Hazuma answered. Faria looked worried. Wait for me, please. The guild master and the onlookers watched, stunned as they left the hall. What's a troll? Hazuma asked as they made their way through the city. Faria explained, it's a humanoid monster, bigger than an orc, but dumb. It doesn't use magic, but it's... Suddenly, rocks whizzed by them. They arrived at the scene, where magic users were struggling to keep the troll at bay. One magic user managed to sever the troll's arm, only for it to regenerate. Faria sighed, that's the worst part about trolls. Unless you destroy its head, it'll just regenerate. Hazuma surveyed the chaotic scene. The troll was enormous, definitely taller than any nearby building. Usually, one could trap this thing in a dungeon hole, he thought, but it's different here. Then it hit him, the troll was nearly void of magic power. I can hurt it with a normal attack, and I've got 5 weapon summoning coins ready. Hazuma noticed the people from the training hall peeking out from behind various obstacles. He called out, I'm taking that thing down. Help me. They looked back, bewildered. Faria, ever the leader, yelled, everyone, come this way and evaluate in an orderly fashion. A brave magic user decided to divert the troll's attention. The troll took the bait and followed him back towards the training hall where Hazuma was stationed. Here's your troll, the magic user announced, panting. Hazuma looked at Faria. Leave the rest to me. How are you going to handle this? She questioned. Just then, Hazuma aimed something shiny into the troll's eyes. Blinded for a split second, the troll recoiled. Now! Hazuma shouted. An explosion burst from beneath the troll's feet, knocking it down. Everyone stared in disbelief. Faria blinked. If that wasn't magic, then what was it? As the troll lumbered to its feet, Hazuma was already a step ahead. Holding a thread in his hand, he smirked. You're not getting up. In a blink, he converted one of his coins into a hand grenade and lobbed it at the troll's face. The explosion rattled the air. Without missing a beat, Hazuma threw another grenade. The troll roared in agony. In an audacious move, Hazuma leaped into the air, converted another coin, and suddenly he was armed with a mini-light machine gun. A hail of bullets shredded the troll's face, ending its reign of terror. A level-up icon appeared above Hazuma. Faria rushed to his side. Are you hurt? I'm fine, he said, catching his breath. Spectators gathered, awestruck. Was that even magic? Can you join our party? They clamored. Faria thought to herself, Ryaji-sama is extraordinary, but those weapons are like nothing I've ever seen. Who is he really? Just then, the guild master appeared. Some demanded, acknowledge him as an adventurer, but the guild master was unmoved. I saw everything. Those strange weapons can't be magic. In my guild, I won't recognize someone who can't use magic as an adventurer. As he spoke, Hazuma stared at him, unfazed. He may not have won the guild master's approval, but he had proven himself to everyone else. Sometimes, being an adventurer wasn't about fitting into someone else's mold, it was about doing what had to be done, with or without magic. And as Hazuma looked at the awe in the eyes of the crowd, he knew he had done just that. A buzz of discontent spread through the crowd as they argued with the guild master, calling him unreasonable. At that moment, a man clad in a black coat entered the scene. Who is that? Hazuma whispered to someone nearby. That's the count who governs this region, came the reply. The count addressed the guild master. I don't recall giving you the authority to be this inflexible, but managing the guild is The count cut him off. I entrusted you to run it justly. Deflated, the guild master muttered an apology. Turning to Hazuma, the count said, forgive my tardiness. As the ruler of this land, let me formally thank you, our savior. I'll take responsibility for your adventurer registration. Hazuma was quick to demur. I appreciate that, but it was a team effort. I couldn't have defeated the troll without everyone's help. How modest. Most adventurers only talk about their own skills, the count noted, looking at Faria. I can see why you're smitten with him. Faria flushed. Please stop, father. You know the count? Hazuma looked puzzled. The count laughed. Of course she does. Faria is my daughter. Later, in a carriage, the Count said to Hazuma, Faria wrote me a very detailed letter about you. Hazuma recalled the inn they'd stayed in. That was when we were at the inn, wasn't it? Yes, Faria's father nodded. Her letters are usually like office reports, but this one was unusually long. Faria chimed in, Father, please. Hazuma grinned. She never mentioned she was a noble. The Count unveiled Faria's stats, level 20. You promised not to reveal that. Faria exclaimed. I can't help it, the Count shrugged, revealing his own stats as level 54. By the way, Hazuma, you left behind the items from the troll. Should we retrieve them? No need, Hazuma said. I prefer to travel light. Very well, the Count accepted, just as a knock sounded. Master, we are approaching the Mirable estate, called a voice. Welcome, Ruggiadano, the Count greeted Hazuma as they arrived. After freshening up, Hazuma pondered his own power and the Count's wealth. When Faria arrived, dressed to impress, she apologized for keeping him waiting. Hazuma thought, the job field changes with the situation. Spies or assassins could take advantage of that. Faria stood a little nervously, her outfit impeccably arranged. Does this look all right? She asked Hazuma. Not at all, you look stunning, Hazuma replied, making Faria blush. Faria's father, the Count, cleared his throat. Ruggi, I must express my deepest gratitude for saving my daughter's life. May I ask, who exactly are you? Hazuma took a deep breath. I'm actually not from this world. I come from another realm, and my goal is to return there by conquering all the mythic rank dungeons. The room fell into stunned silence. That sounds ambitious, Faria finally spoke, a mix of awe and concern in her voice. Her father chimed in, mythic rank dungeons are sealed. Only a divine gate key can open them. The closest one is at the royal capital, and its key is in the legendary rank dungeon in the city of Redam. Hazuma's eyes lit up. Would you permit me to explore this dungeon? The Count sighed. You can, but I have a condition. You see, the dungeon's core is malfunctioning. It could lead to a disaster. What's a dungeon core? Hazuma inquired. Faria explained, a dungeon core is the essence of divine power that governs a dungeon's environment. If the core goes haywire, the dungeon starts growing uncontrollably, releasing monsters into the city. Hazuma nodded. You're saying the core in Redam's legendary dungeon is unstable? Exactly, the Count affirmed. And if it's not stopped, the city will be overrun. I accept your condition, Hazuma declared. I need that divine gate key anyway. Faria stepped forward. I'd like to accompany him, father. The Count was surprised. Are you sure, Faria? She nodded. I've been captivated by Ruggi. There's no stopping me. Her father sighed, eventually giving his reluctant blessing. Very well. As they prepared to embark on their journey, Hazuma noticed something odd. Your job title changed to adventurer? You're a noble's daughter. Why choose to be an adventurer rather than live in comfort? Faria looked at him earnestly. My father was a knight. He served under the current monarch and played a crucial role in saving the kingdom of Naxix from war. Now that we're not at war, people are still at risk, but from dungeons instead of armies. I want to protect them, just like my father did. Hazuma nodded, impressed. Would you mind showing me what you can do? It's good to know each other's strengths before going into a dungeon. With a thoughtful expression, Faria unsheathed her sword and focused. A moment later, an explosive force erupted from the blade, shattering a large rock nearby into pieces. Wow, Hazuma exclaimed, eyes widening. That's powerful. You'll definitely stand out among other adventurers with that kind of ability. Faria looked somewhat embarrassed. The problem is, it takes too long to prepare that spell. I haven't had the chance to use it yet in actual combat. Hazuma smiled reassuringly. You shouldn't apologize for having a unique skill. The key is to figure out when and how to use it effectively. Let's strategize around it. After some time, they reached a ledge overlooking the deepest part of the dungeon. We can teleport down there with a magic formation, Faria said, but before she could finish her sentence, Hazuma had already leapt off the cliff. Faria, wait, don't! He was already plummeting, hitting the ground below with a soft thud. To his surprise, he found himself facing level 21 orcs. Faria managed to join him, confirming his suspicion. These are the monsters that have been pouring out of this dungeon. If we're noticed by a group of them, it could be disastrous. Hazuma scratched his head. Well, we could try to pick them off one by one. Faria shook her head. Too risky. If one orc notices us, the others will too, and we'll be overwhelmed. Okay, Hazuma said, pausing to think. I've got an idea. Could you use your magic right away? The tension was palpable as they looked at each other, realizing this would be their first real test as a team. They were at the edge of uncertainty, but in that moment, both felt a surprising calm. Hazuma had seen Faria's power, and he was sure that together they could tackle the menacing dungeon that lay before them. Faria, on her end, was charmed by Hazuma's reassuring attitude and quick thinking. It seemed, in that brief second, that they were not just adventurers on a quest, but companions united by a common cause, ready to face whatever the dungeon had in store for them. And so, with a nod from Faria, they prepared to unleash their respective strengths on the monstrous menace below, each confident in the other's abilities and in their newfound partnership. It was a dark, gloomy hall with monsters roaming around. Suddenly, one was hit with a stone at its leg and fell down. They saw each other, puzzled by what had just happened. Then a second stone hit the second monster. He looked back and found a soldier standing there with rocks in his hands. Over a margin, Ruji jumps and lands in front of the monsters. As he lands, they start to chase after him, and he starts to run. As he was running, he wondered why the monsters were quite fast. But then it hit him, he could run faster. With his powers, he rushes away, leaving the monsters behind. Talking to himself, he realizes he has grown fairly familiar with using magic power. He can now perform movements that would have been impossible for him before. As he was thinking these thoughts, he threw a stone at a monster. Boosted by his magic, the stone rips apart the monster's head, killing it instantly. Ruji thinks to himself that there are various ways to use magic power, but, at any rate, it seems the number of monsters has multiplied. Regardless, he will soon reach the place they agreed upon. Ruji stops at the position where he is supposed to. As the monsters reach him, he yells, "Now, Faria!" She appears and kills all the monsters in a single blow while hitting all of them simultaneously. As she is done, she levels up. Ruji also levels up, as the system notifies him. He thinks that his level increases when he works with others to defeat enemies. He wonders if Faria has leveled up as well. Faria is amazed. With just one attack, she managed to level up. This is a first for her as well, and she thanks him. Ruji-sama, Ruji tells her not to sweat it. This just means that she already had it in her to begin with. They find plenty of weapons and summoning coins on the ground. Ruji wonders if these will make it easier to conquer the dungeon. As Ruji picks up a coin, he is shocked to find that it is a magic power restoring coin. Faria says that it's an item that restores all his depleted magic powers instantly. Ruji asks how long it usually takes to recover magic. Faria says that for her, it takes about an hour. Ruji thinks his magic has also depleted but gives Faria the coin, saying it will be better used by her. "So, shall we get going?" asks Faria. "Yeah," replies Ruji, and they start to walk through the dungeon. They notice a strange space ahead, where the walls and ceiling emit a faint light, as if prearranged for human exploration. Ruji asks Faria to stop. He spots some men walking far from them and asks if they are also adventurers. Faria says that can't be. Her father's permission is required to explore this legendary ranked dungeon. Ruji thinks they might be unauthorized explorers, possibly even a looting party. Nevertheless, they are well equipped. "What should we do?" asks Faria. "Let's capture one of them and ask him directly," Ruji suggests. As the explorers walk by, Ruji throws a stone at one. The man turns, but is told by his companion to keep up. Just as he is about to turn back, Ruji grabs him and takes him away. "Who are you and why are you exploring this dungeon?" Ruji asks. Faria adds, "You know this is a legendary ranked dungeon, right? You need permission to explore it." The man says they know but just don't care. "Perhaps you are." That's right, they are unregistered adventurers, Ruji asks. Unregistered? Faria explains that they are not affiliated with any adventurers guild's office. Since the retainer fees are usually a hefty sum, they prefer not to share any profit with the guild and not to pay any attention fees either. That being said, they will also undertake illegal requests. They are dishonest and disgusting people. Hey, what's with the harsh remarks? Ruji asks. The man says, we're just against the guild's monopoly. Besides, if anyone were to hear who our client is this time, something like this would complicate it, wouldn't it? Oops, Ruji says, I see now. So, his employer seems to be a big shot. So who is he? The man replies, that's, and then starts to laugh. What's this? Why have so many orcs appeared all of a sudden? Asks the guy from the looting party. Nobody told us this would happen, says a fat guy on their unregistered adventure. Ruji and the others see them, and the man tells, this is bad, they are completely surrounded. Ruji says he guesses he has to go, and Faria agrees. As Ruji is sliding down the way, he summons a famous 5.56 by 44mm NATO caliber bullpup assault rifle and shoots down the orcs. The unregistered adventurers wonder what's going on. The captured guy tells them to come his way quickly and get out of there. They leave through a tunnel to patch up with their friend. As they reach safety, their leader thanks Ruji for his help and then asks, are you perhaps here to do some looting too? Faria tells him that they are not and reveals that her father, the Count, has granted her permission to explore this dungeon. The leader sums it up, asking Ruji if she was not meant to reveal that. Ruji tells her that it's perfect timing. He already knows who their big shot client is. Faria is startled to hear that. The leader wonders if he has found out that much, then there's no use hiding it. Just as you guessed, the one who hired us is the kingdom's monarch himself, he says. Ruji replies that he knew it, while Faria wonders if he didn't know anything at all. Ruji and the leader look at each other, and Ruji tells them to move forward. These damn orcs, says one of the guys, the place is full of them roaming around. Leader mentions that they won't be able to reach the deepest section of the dungeon unless they pass through there. Faria thinks that she has also heard from her father that there is only one direct path available. The leader then asks if it would be absurd to face so many orcs head-on. Ruji says it would be fine if they don't face them head-on directly. Faria and the leader wonder what then. The two guys from the looting party call out to the orcs and direct their attention. Orcs start to see them, and they start to wonder what is happening. Come on and get them, if they can, cowards, say the guys. Seeing them standing there, orcs start to follow them and chase them. As soon as the orcs start running, they start running in front of them and hide behind a wall. We have successfully lured them in, so please do something quickly about it, one of them says. Faria says this scene brings something to her mind. I have the impression that Ruji made someone do the exact same thing when dealing with the troll. Ruji says, that's a given. Choosing a place where you hold the advantage on the battlefield is a basic fighting principle, after all. Are we not taking action yet? The leader asks. Ruji says they have to get a little bit closer. As the orcs are about to approach, Ruji says they are close enough and asks the guys to act. They start to blast fire at them and throw rocks. Seeing this, the orcs get confused. Fire at will, the man says, and don't stop attacking. The guys, luring the orcs, are amazed after seeing the orcs dead. The leader says, we were able to defeat the group of orcs so easily. Thanks to this, we'll be able to finish the job without difficulty. Newcomers start running away, and he asks, what are they doing, as they head to a cave. Ruji wonders if those two were at the rear of their group. Yes, they originally weren't our comrades. We lacked manpower, so we hired some drifting strangers, the leader says. Ruji says they seem to have been spies sent by the king. Faria asks what he means. Ruji explains, they were sent to keep tabs on us, whether we were working properly or not. It's to prevent us from running away with the item, among other things. Faria asks, they reached an agreement with Ruji and changed sides, didn't they? The leader asks, more importantly, is this okay? We are heading to the deepest section of the dungeon. Ruji says they have to chase after them right away. The leader asks how they are going to do it. We distracted the orcs while we were leaving, so the orcs aren't coming for us anymore, the leader adds. 10 of them still remain, Ruji says. Those kinds of numbers aren't a problem. He asks Faria if she is up for it, and she says, of course, I am. They continue this, just like before, while following Ruji. Ruji lands a blow on all of them using his magic powers and then asks Faria to finish them off. She does, using her own magic. The leader asks, who are you? Ruji replies, I'm just a soldier, and tells them to get going. The leader agrees. Through the cave, they walk down the stairs and go all the way down. The leader says that according to the map, the deepest section of the dungeon is just ahead. When they get there, they find a huge giant orc. Is this an orc king? Someone asks. Suddenly, the orc lunges at them and kills some of their team. Faria yells, you monster, and starts to attack. Stop. Ruji yells. Faria says, we have to help him. Ruji tells her, he's already dead. Faria growls, and the leader calls everyone to pull back. We can't win against that, he says, just as more orcs appear. The team wonders what to do now. Suddenly, a trap is triggered and a pit opens. What's that? They wonder. In other words, that's how deep this pit is, Ruji says. The leader agrees, there's no saving anyone who falls down there. Faria encourages everyone not to give up hope. We can win against that thing, she says. She gathers her magic power using a coin and attacks, but the orc remains unscathed. No way, Faria mutters, just as the orc lunges at her again. Ruji saves her and asks, are you okay? I am, and I'm sorry, Faria replies. Ruji then turns to the leader. Can we leave the orc mob to you? The leader nods. It's fine as long as they keep them preoccupied. The leader says that he thinks they could manage for just a few minutes. But Ruji says that it's plenty. Faria calls Ruji, and he tells her that it's all right and she should rest. He then goes to fight the king orc, who is busy with himself. Ruji throws a stone in his eye and destroys it. King Orc yells with pain, and Ruji says that he is sorry but shows no mercy to those who touch his comrades. King Orc then comes to attack him, but Ruji lands blows on him and attacks him multiple times. Stones start to get thrown at the orc, and it starts to scream and yell. A guy looks at him and wonders if Ruji is just giving the Orc King the slip at this rate. Hey, there is no time to be getting distracted, the leader calls out. King Orc attacks Ruji, who evades but takes the hit. Faria yells at Ruji, seeing him get hit. King Orc laughs at it. Then, the orc comes to attack Ruji, who is standing. When it is about to hit him, he uses a summoning coin. Ruji summons an M19 and Titanic landmine using the summoning coin. When King Orc is about to land the punch, he evades it and leaves the landmine close to the orc's feet and triggers it. Ruji wonders that manipulating something this heavy with magic power is pretty demanding. The landmine leaves much damage to King Orc, and it screams with pain. Ruji wonders why the orc is mostly unharmed after taking that kind of damage that could have easily destroyed a tank. But Ruji rushes in, jumps, and punches the Orc King down to the open floor into the deep pit. King Orc manages to hold itself on the edge, but Ruji takes out his dagger and cuts off its hand. The orc falls down into the deep pit. Ruji thinks to himself that with a huge body like that, they were able to hear the sound of it hitting the ground. Who would have thought that his mind clearance training would be put to use for this, he thinks, and then directs his attention towards the remaining orcs. He asks if now that their boss is gone, do they still wish to continue? A leader takes the lead and gets ready to attack them. Leave the rest to us, he tells Ruji, and they start attacking the orcs. Ruji goes to Faria and asks if she can walk. She says that yes, she has almost completely recovered. Then let's get going, Ruji suggests. They walk through the corridor to a bright room filled with huge light. A huge glowing chandelier illuminates the entire room. Ruji goes to the key that is placed in a glass chamber in the room and wonders if this is the Divine Gate key. He takes his hand to grab it. As soon as Ruji picks it up, the dungeon's light returns to normal, and a system notification appears. He has obtained a divine key and cleared a legendary rank dungeon. He has been assigned the title of Legendary Rank Dungeon Traverser. Is this it? Ruji wonders and asks Faria what a title is. Hearing that, she says Ruji got one too and explains that a title is something bestowed upon someone after they go through a certain experience or accomplish a particular feat. Having a title means that one will be prioritized when taking requests, and an extra will be added to the rewards, but more than anything, it brings great honor to its bearer, Ruji says. So, I see. He then wonders aloud that apparently, titles aren't visible from other stats windows and asks her, so how does one know about others' titles? Faria says, there are appraisers in the guild. The guild has every adventurer's stats window appraised by them. If they have a title, then one can receive a certificate issued from the guild. Ruji replies, I see. The leader tells them they are done and they can get out of there anytime after completing the dungeon and grabbing the treasure. Everyone gets out of there. The leader tells Ruji, thanks for your help there, and then says, as promised, these are the weapon summoning coins that we collected from the dungeon. He gives another bag and tells them to take it as thanks. Ruji says, you can have it back. The leader hesitates, but Ruji says, instead, I won't tell the Naxxas Kingdom about you. And if by any chance I blabbed, the leader interrupts, I know, we don't want to make an enemy of the guy who killed the Orc King. Ruji and Faria leave with their loot. As they travel through the jungle, Faria asks, you forbade them to speak about us just now. Why? Ruji says, if the Naxxas Kingdom, which hired us, is aiming for the Divine Gate key. Faria completes his thought, then they may come to steal the key if they find out about us? Yes, that's the gist of it, Ruji says. It's best they don't know of our existence. Suddenly, Ruji tells Faria to get down as something comes shooting right at them, and he takes her along. With him, Ruji ducks to evade it. Faria asks what it is, and the arrow that came for them hits the ground. Ruji, after evading it, asks, who's there? But there's no response. Ruji wonders about an assassination attempt right off the bat. In Count Mirabelle's estate, in the reception hall, Ruji and Faria are sitting with the Count. The Count says that he is deeply grateful to them. Ruji says that he didn't do it for that reason, he did it for his own. More importantly, he adds, I recalled the unregistered adventurers and the assassin who attempted on us. The Count asks, you want to talk about what that looting party was doing in my territory's legendary rank dungeon? Ruji says, they said that the Naxxas Kingdom hired them. Seeing his father sad, Faria asks, you don't seem too surprised. Do you have an idea about why they did that? The Count says, there is a rumor that neighboring countries have started assembling forces. For what purpose? Faria asks. The Count explains, dungeons across every territory in the continent are exhibiting accelerating growth rates. Monsters are overflowing out of the dungeons to the surrounding areas. There also seem to be regions where crops are being severely affected. It's a distressing situation everywhere indeed. Even so? Faria asks. The Count says, even in this world, the causes for strife are always the same. Maybe His Royal Highness is planning to conquer the mythic rank dungeon so that he can have his wish fulfilled. His wish? Ruji asks. The Count tells them of putting an end to all strife by uniting the continent. Faria says, there's no way that could possibly be accomplished. Even if he were to put to use the god's powers he might get at the mythic rank dungeon, a lot of blood would still be spilled in the process. The Count agrees, that is precisely why I advised His Majesty to change his mind when he previously told me about his ambition. Ruji mumbles, I see, and adds, so the reason why he went out of his way to hire the looting party to secretly infiltrate the dungeon was that he wanted to keep it a secret from you, huh? The Count says, yes, and he is most probably right. Also, recently, His Majesty has been reluctant to lend me an ear. Despite personally going off to the castle, he refused to even grant me an audience. I know this is an unreasonable thing to ask, but I wish for you to conquer the mythic rank dungeon to stop His Majesty. Ruji says, that goes without saying. I intended to do just that from the very start. Ruji and Faria visit a grave and then set off to conquer the mythic dungeon. The Count sees them off. They travel from the Count's palace to the mythic dungeon to conquer it. On the way, they make a stop. To sleep, Farah gets out of the carriage and sits on a bench outside. There, Ruji comes to her and asks if she can't sleep. Faria says that when she thinks about them challenging the mythic rank dungeon tomorrow, she gets anxious. Ruji says she didn't have to force herself to come with him. Faria replies, "You don't say that when it's already too late. I came because I was charmed by you, after all. My mother also said to hurry up and find a good person. I was able to find a party member, a good member at last, and I don't want to part ways so easily." Ruji wonders if Faria's mother had something else entirely in mind when she told her to find a good person. He then asks about Faria's parents, mentioning that her mother said her body was frail by nature and food was not readily available after the war. He then asks about Ruji's own parents and whether they are waiting for him back in his world. Ruji says, "It's similar to what happened with my mother. Both of my parents passed away when I was a kid." Faria is sorry to hear that. Ruji tells her not to worry about it. "Many things happened after that, and I ended up becoming a soldier. I was part of a unit with men from different countries. Everyone was completely unlike the others in terms of their ways of thinking and habits. But in spite of all that, we put our lives on the line for each other. They are like my family now." He then says that he has said too much and that they will make preparations tomorrow. Meanwhile, a soldier presents a knight with a divine gate key. The knight replies, "Excellent. We will begin the dungeon raid right away. Don't let your guard down." The soldier replies, "Yes, sir." Then, the knight uses the divine gate key to open the door to the mythic dungeon. As he inserts the key into the door opens, and the knight takes an army of soldiers with him into the dungeon. The army marches right into the dungeon under the leadership of the knight, and the gate closes behind them. 2 soldiers stand outside to guard the entry. Faria and Ruji see all of this from behind the trees. Faria asks, "Why do Nax's troops have a divine gate key?" Ruji is left contemplating this new development. Ruji tells her about the looting party and their raid. Faria replies, "So that was the case?" Ruji explains what they said. Faria asks, "Did they find one on a different route, or did they discover one in some other storage place?" Ruji says, "Be that as it may, what's certain is that we were beaten to it." Faria asks if they should go after them and force their way through. Ruji says that if worst comes to worst, there won't be any other way around it, but it would be troublesome to take on so many opponents. Suddenly, they hear a rustling in the trees and get alarmed. Ruji asks, "Who's there?" Faria takes out her sword and puts it to the throat of the guy who was hiding behind them. He tells her to wait. She says, "You're that man from before." Before she goes to inquire further, he says it's bad to follow them, but he's here for business. Faria asks, "What business, though?" He explains that his main occupation is being an apothecary. He buys ingredients from adventurers and makes magic potions with them, but recently no good ingredients have appeared in the royal capital. Faria says, "That's because dungeons seem to have become more active and the circulation of ingredients and material has stagnated, right?" The man agrees, saying that's why he was searching for information on them and hoping to obtain some ingredients. Ruji asks him what this has to do with tailing them. He replies that his intuition as a merchant told him to do so. Both Faria and Ruji look at him with uncertainty. He insists that he's telling the truth and adds, "You want to go into that mythic rank dungeon, right?" Faria asks if he knows the way in. He says a merchant has many connections and he knows of a back entrance. Ruji asks what he wants in exchange. The man says he just wants to buy the ingredients and materials they find inside the mythic rank dungeon at a fair price. Faria was about to say something, but the merchant cuts her off, asking her not to mention something as stuffy and narrow-minded as needing to go through the guild. Ruji agrees to let him guide them to the back entrance. The man says, "That's the spirit," and points out the back door. Ruji uses the divine gate key to open the door. The door opens, they enter the dungeon, and the merchant tells them he's counting on them. Then the assassin approaches the merchant and asks, "Is it okay to let them go just like that?" The merchant replies, "It's no problem at all." After all, those two are unrelated in the dungeon. In the dungeon hall, Faria notes that the magic power is dense and feels like she's being crushed. She asks Ruji if he's all right. He assures her that since no enemy is present right now, their movements won't be hindered. "Is that so?" says Faria. Ruji then wonders why it's necessary to take a key from another dungeon to enter this one in the first place. Faria replies, "It's just how things are. I never really thought of any reason besides that." Suddenly, a voice chimes in, "I will clear your doubts." Faria is startled, panics, and yells, "Who's there?" Ruji asks if she heard that, and she says yes, but when he asks again, she says she didn't hear it the second time. Confused, they wonder what is happening. Ruji asks, "What's the meaning of this?" A girl appears and says, "Well, I'm finally able to reveal my true form. As I thought, if it were not for this dense magic power in here, it would have been difficult for me to materialize." The girl takes her true form, and as she transforms, a bright light appears. She announces in her heavenly voice that